Ya tamaso humaham jyoti gamaya mrityurmam amritam gamaya aviravir maedhi rudra yate dakshinam mukham te namaham pahinityam. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. And reach us through and through ourselves, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. So my subject this morning is the inner light. Now, when we think of Hinduism, we think of many gods and goddesses, each one of whom in Vedanta considered to be an aspect of the personal God, the impersonal, personal Ishvara. And each one of these gods and goddesses probably has a temple built in their honor, and there are thousands and thousands of temples. And each one has their own festival day in which hundreds of devotees come together and sing their name and glories. But in order to understand our subject this morning, we have to go far back into ancient times, that is, into the Vedic period, before the evolution of the conception of a personal God. The Vedic Aryan peoples used to worship the devas. The devas, a deva comes from the Sanskrit root div, that means to shine. A deva is a shining light being. And so these ancient Vedic people used to worship light. Not in anthropomorphic form, not in temples, but maybe in the forces of nature, manifest as lightning, or as the wind, or as celestial bodies, like the moon and the sun, or even the fire, the hearth fire in every home, and the sacrificial fire that carried the offerings upward into heaven. Think of an example of a deva. And we can think of Surya Deva, that is the sun. You can't even imagine, if you were going to think of a god to worship, what better God, what better image could you possibly have than the sun shining in the sky? That is the source of all of our light, of all of our heat and energy on the earth. You know, all energy eventually comes from the sun. It's not just solar energy, wind energy. The wind blows because the surface of the earth is heated in different ways at different temperatures, and so the air moves from one area to another. Even hydroelectric power, which we think like electricity, well, it just comes from running water, rivers and dams and great generators. But why does the water flow? It's all part of the great water cycle that's regulated by the heat in the atmosphere of the earth, and eventually goes back to its source, the sun. So we see these gods, the devas, div. Think of divinity. These are divinities. And they all are forms of light. Light is a natural symbol for divinity, for God. Light also is a natural symbol for consciousness and for knowledge. And well, knowledge is very important to us. Knowledge is important to everyone because knowledge removes ignorance. And ignorance is the source and the cause of all of our suffering in life after life. You know, everyone in the world is struggling to attain, consciously or unconsciously, what Plato called the good, the supreme value. Everyone has in their mind and heart a conception of the supreme value. And they've determined that what they need to do in order to realize the good, well, that would be the right thing to do. And so they do the right thing. And so everyone in the world is trying to realize their concept of the good by doing the right thing. Everyone in the world thinks that they are doing the right thing in order to achieve what they believe, what they conceive and understand to be the good. And how do you know and evaluate and determine what is really the good? Well, it all depends on your level of consciousness. If you have a very high level of consciousness and you're living at a high vibrational level, then you see more clearly. But if you're not at that level, then maybe you begin to see through a glass darkly. And at lower and lower levels of consciousness, their conception of the good and the right is radically different. All of these are different levels of consciousness and knowledge and ignorance. Now, in Vedanta, we're very interested in the subject of knowledge. And by knowledge here, we mean pure consciousness. Knowledge with a capital K. That's why this is called the Vedanta Society. Vedanta just means the supreme knowledge. And so this is the society devoted to and interested in attaining that knowledge. The two kinds of knowledge, that is the lower and the higher. The lower knowledge, we know, is just knowledge of sense objects. That is the knower, the knowing and the known. The higher knowledge, however, is superconscious intuition of your own true nature. Both kinds of knowledge remove ignorance, but only the higher knowledge removes self-ignorance. That is the fundamental realization of our true nature. Let's look at that thesis. This is a fundamental thesis of the Vedanta philosophy. Ignorance is removed by knowledge. It's the only thing that will remove it. Let's say that you come into a very dark room and we're going to have a class, and there are all many people there in the room, but they're struggling and they're bumping into chairs and into tables. It's pitch dark. Nobody can see what's going on. So maybe if we come in there, we figure this commotion, all of this problem and turmoil, what can we do? Well, we're devotees. Maybe we could just sit down and pray. So we just sit down and pray, but that doesn't seem to help any, because we're still bumping into tables. We're still in confusion. Maybe we could just leave this room and go out and help and distribute alms to the poor. But after we do so and we come back into this dark room, we find that we're still in the same situation. We're still in the same predicament. And in fact, the only rational thing to do in order to solve this problem would be just to go and turn on the light switch. And once the light is on, the light will dispel the darkness, and all of our confusion will be removed. There was a Swami who, one of the first Swamis, his name was Swami Rama Tirtha. He came to America in 1902, maybe the first Swami to preach Vedanta philosophy in America, inspired by Swami Vivekananda. And well, he has his writings are very helpful and interesting for us. Appear in 6 volumes called In the Woods of God Realization. So he was a pioneer, preaching Vedanta in America in 1902. And he told a story about the village. There's a village of people. Nearby there was a great cave. In the mouth of the cave, they look in, it was all darkness. And the villagers felt very uncomfortable with this dark, ominous mouth of the cave bearing down upon the village. And as time passed, they became more and more fearful. Sometimes young boys would go by and they'd throw stones in order to maybe to kill the demon darkness. And some others went with sharpened sticks, threw those sticks and spears in, hoping to get rid of that, what had become in the village kind of demonized. They demonized the darkness. And so it became like a kind of collective shadow to the people in the village. It weighed on their minds. But one day, a boy came by that way. He asked, well, what's the problem? Well, we can't dispel this demon darkness. And the boy thought, well, let me try. And he went and he lit a torch. And he went into the mouth of the cave, looked around, everything seemed to be okay. Went down deeper and deeper into the cave. And everything filled there with light. One by one, the villagers came and they peeped in. They found there was nothing there. Oh, they were so happy that this boy, well, he became like a hero. He had dispelled the demon darkness. Now they just went up there to that cave. They themselves, they took a torch in the cave. Now they could use it for maybe you do a puja on a rainy day or something. There they would meet there in the cave. And they were so happy that they dispelled the demon darkness. So darkness and light, that's kind of our subject. First we're going to talk about light, then we're going to talk about the inner light. Now we're talking about light. So light removes ignorance, knowledge removes ignorance. And so now we focus on what is the source of that light. What is that light? That divinity. If you read there in the Upanishads, chapter 4, King Janaka went to visit the sage Yajnavalkya. And he asked him some questions. The first question that he asked him was, he said, "O sage," he said, what is it, what serves as a light for man?" And Yajnavalkya said, well, it was the sun, indeed, is his light, O king. Because by the light of the sun, he goes out, he works, and then he returns. "Oh, yes, quite so," said Yajnavalkya. "But when the sun is set, what serves as a light for man?" "Well, then the moon indeed is his light, O king. For by the light of the moon, he goes out, he works, and he returns." "Quite so," said Yajnavalkya. "But when the sun is set and the moon has set, then what serves as a light for man?" "Well, it is fire indeed. It is fire that is the light. From the light of the fire, a man can go out and work and can return." "Quite so," said Yajnavalkya. "Yes, but when the sun is set and the moon is set and the fire has gone out, then what serves as a light for man?" And Yajnavalkya says, "Well, then it is speech, O king. For by the sound of speech, one can go out and work and return." "Ah, yes, quite so," said Janaka. "Quite so, Yajnavalkya. When the sun is set and the moon is set, the fire has gone out, and everything is silent, and there is no one is speaking, and no one is guiding you, then what serves as a light for man?" Then Yajnavalkya says, "Well, then the self indeed is his light, O king. For by the light of the self, that is the Atman, he goes out and works and returns." And so that's the teaching. of the sage Yajnavalkya. That is, he's reduced the light. Our question is here, what is that light? Well, that light now is kind of been reduced to the what is the cause of the light. That is the self. And what is the self? We say the self, we just mean our consciousness, our own consciousness, our own I consciousness. There's no mystery about it. That's the source of the light. And because you think about it, you go to your light, you're in the sunlight, okay. Then you fall asleep and you dream. And there you see trees and you see houses and people walking around. And you see them all. They're all lit up, but what's lighting them? The sun. But where's the sun? Your eyes are closed, you're asleep. Where did that sun come from? We see here that we have to kind of reconfigure what we mean by light. The light is the metaphor. And the famous verse, in the Upanishad, Natatra Suryo Bhati, the Chandratarakam, Nema Vidyuto Bhanti Kutoyam Agni, Tadeva Bhantam, Anubhati Sarvam, Tasya Bhasa, Sarvam, Idam, Vibhati. That's the famous verse from the 5th chapter of the Katha Upanishad. It says there, the sun does not shine there. Now he's talking about the self. The sun does not shine there. Consider yourself maybe like in deep sleep. The sun does not shine there, nor the moon, nor the stars, nor all these earthly lights. And yet he's shining, all of these other lights shine. That is, he, that means the Atman, that means your own consciousness, is the source of all the light. And I quote to you the Sanskrit. That's because in the monastery, long ago, we had to memorize a lot of these Sanskrit verses. And so I know some Sanskrit I don't know them all, but I know some of them, some of the most important ones. And so I figure, why not use them? I take my opportunity to use them in a lecture. But you get the point. That in your consciousness, the sun and the moon and the lightning do not illuminate you. That is, you illuminate the lightning. That you are the source, the cause. And here we've kind of reduced the additional point that we've made the light into the cause. But there's still another connection. That is, it's the cause, and that is, now let's talk a little bit about the inner light. That is, there's a subjectivity when we say the cause. It's not just a causal reduction. It's a reduction back into our own consciousness, into our own subjectivity. The subject. What is the light? The light is the subject. It's not the object. And we told the story about the Brahmin widow She was a seamstress. And one day she sat by the light of the window doing her sewing. She became absorbed in her sewing. And the sun gradually set and it became dark. And then she dropped her sewing needle. And what did she do? Well, she set the cloths aside and she got up. She went over and she put on her shawl, walked out the front door and down to the sidewalk, walked down the side street to a main street, turned the corner, and there was a very bright street lamp. So she walked over there and she was looking around under the street lamp. And meanwhile, a patrolling policeman came by that way. He said, "Excuse me, ma'am, have you lost something?" She said, "Oh, yes. I've lost my sewing needle." "Oh," said the policeman, let me just help you." He looked around there, got down on his hands and knees, looking all right. "I can't see it anywhere. Are you sure that you lost it here?" And she said, "Here? No, I didn't lose it here. I lost it back in my house down the street." "Well, then why are you looking for it here?" said the policeman. "Well," she said, "this is where the light is." Makes sense? That's what whatever we're looking for in our life. Where are we looking? Well, we're looking where the light is. Obviously. But now we remember that the Brahmin widow that the teaching now from Yajnavalkya is the light is the self, and the self is the source, and the source is the subject. The source of what you're looking for is the subject, it's not the object. And so she was looking, it seems foolish, and yet we're all in that same condition. Why do we look outside? Because it's dark inside. But not really. You close your eyes. And with the mind's eye, you can see many things. You can see houses and trees and people. And with your consciousness and your intelligence, and you can think and you can know things. And so the idea is this is a call to introspection. There is a light that is the inner light. It's to turn within ourselves. That's kind of the teaching of the universal teaching of the wisdom of the East. A call to introspection. And it describes there in the 4th chapter of the Katha Upanishad, it asks that question. Who was it? You have to think about it. And if you go back thousands and thousands of years to the beginning of humanity, some guy, it must have been, who first got the idea of looking within. See, because we're all born with our eyes and our senses turned outwards. It never occurs to us to look within ourselves. And yet there must have been some sage in ancient times who thought, this just doesn't work anymore. I think I'll just close my eyes, withdraw my mind, and look within. He was the first sage. And that's the teaching here of the call to introspection, what we're looking for. See, Sri Ramakrishna tells us about the man who he loved to smoke. And he woke up one night, in the middle of the night, he reached over and he wanted to smoke a little beedi. That means it's a hand-rolled, strong cigarette. But he fished around, he didn't have any matches. But he had to smoke. He was a smoker. So what could he do? He got up, went downstairs, and He didn't have any matches. So he picked up the lighted lantern, which was burning in the window, got it by the handle, went out the front door, went down and walked down the street to the next house, neighboring house, knocked on the door. Now it's about 2 a.m. at this time. Knock, knock, knock. What is this disturbance? The window's open. What is it you want? Neighbor, why are you here? Oh, he said, I need a light for my smoke. And the neighbor looked down. He said, you fool, how will you come here and disturb everyone in the middle of the night when you have a lighted lantern in your hand? And sure enough, he looked there. He didn't think of that. He had a lighted lantern. He could have just lit his cigarette that way without disturbing anyone. And so the idea is that it's a call to look within. That which we're looking for is within. Now, in terms of our yoga practice, in terms of spiritual practice, we know there are different kinds of spiritual practice. This morning it comes out of the framework of Raja Yoga and that great path of meditation. We know that when it comes to closing our eyes and looking within, that's called Raja Yoga. And that's the distinctive feature of this Raja Yoga meditation. It's different from all other kinds of meditation that you may read about. That is, it requires that we withdraw our mind from the external world and from the senses and focus our mind on that which is within us. And the highest use, the highest application of this yoga would be to meditate on the Purusha, that is, on ourself, our true nature. The problem is, our true nature is infinite. It's like the sky. It's like the space. And therefore, what we need is some symbol, because the mind can't grasp the self. So we need some symbol. And one common universal symbol that's used in different forms of meditation and Raja Yoga is that of a flame of light burning in a windless place. To just think of that, a flame of light burning in a windless place. It's the size, as they say, Angushta Matra Purusho Jyotir Iva Dhumaka. That means it's the size of a thumb. It's very small, in the cave of the heart, burning without any smoke or without any wind or flickering. That's the light upon which we meditate. And so the ideal then is to withdraw your mind and sit and meditate on this light. What are you trying to do at that time? Is this a real light that you're looking at? Well, not really. You look at a sunlight, you look at a candle, that's real light. But if you close your eyes and you think of a fire or you think of a candle, that's imaginary. So the symbol here is imaginary. So don't try to strain your eyes looking at it for a light. You're not trying to see anything. The idea is it's a symbol. It's a finger that's pointing towards something. It's like the cross that represents something. And as you meditate, your mind gets deeper, quieter, and more quiet and still. Then the meaning of that symbol will reveal itself as your own self. And so it's all about just being who you really are. Let me give you an example of the Swami. What time is it?
11:40.
Okay. Let's. We're looking here at the light. There was a famous song. It was written by Hank Williams. And it's a song that became a gospel music standard. And it was covered by many artists. The title of the song was, "I Saw the Light." Let's look at a couple verses of that song. If I can remember the verses here. I saw the light. First verse, we'll just do 3 verses. First verse. I walked along. What does it say? I wandered along in a life of sin. I wouldn't let my poor Savior in. Then Jesus came like a stranger in the night, and praise the Lord, I saw the light. That's first verse. Well, that's good. I saw the light. What does that mean? That means, well, kind of a vision, of a divine vision, of a god, of a goddess, of your Ishtadevata, of spirituality. It's kind of an experience of divinity. So he said, I saw the light. He equated it with the light. And so we're kind of thinking about, what does that mean? I saw the light. Okay, that's one example. And the second verse there, it says something like a blind man. I wandered along, and worries and fears I claimed for my own. And then like a blind man, and then as God made the blind man see the light, so it was that I saw the light. So the idea there, the imagery, we see the imagery. What does it mean to see the light? It means kind of like think of a blind man who's kind of wandering along. And all of these worries and fears are upon him. Just as a blind man in the Bible, when Jesus opens his eyes and he sees the light, what a transformation it was in his life. Just like the blind man, when God gave back his sight. That's what it means, to see the light. Third verse there, he says, like a fool, I wandered along. I wandered astray in this world. But straight is the gate and narrow is the way. And so I traded the wrong for the right, and praise the Lord. I saw the light. So there you go. It's just like kind of the light bulb went on in his mind. He was living a life of gone astray in his life, and then he remembered, that the right way is the straight path, the narrow path. And so he returned to that path, and he began to embrace the straight and the narrow. And so his life kind of changed. He saw the light. So those are just 3 examples there in the song of what it means. What does it mean when you say, I saw the light? So we got it kind of from the point of view of the yoga, and then from the point of view of the devotee, maybe has a vision of his Ishta Devata, and then maybe from the point of view of the jnani, who awakens from his blindness, and then from the point of view of our ordinary experience. We have to have the light bulb go on so that we can gain understanding of what is the right way to live. Let me conclude with a parable that kind of illustrates the, Vedanta, this light, seeing the light, and it's all about enlightenment. The goal of life is enlightenment. That's the teaching of Vedanta. Enlightenment means illumination. That's the goal. But what does it mean? Here we're kind of trying to walk around it. What does it mean to be illumined? And here in this parable, which kind of shows us that what it means to be enlightened is to find fulfillment in life, to reach the ultimate discovery of our own oneness with everything. And once there was a man, he was a farmer, and he'd grown old, living alone now in a big farmhouse, and he felt life was drawing to an end there. House was very empty, and but he wanted to bring some closure to his life. So he called upon and summoned his 3 sons. They lived away from him. They came one by one. There they came together. He says, "Sons, when I die, I'm going to give the inheritance of this farm and all the buildings here, this estate, to only one of you, the one that shows the most wisdom and that the deepest understanding of life. And your task that I had set for you," he says, "is to fill up this house." Fill up this house. Well, the very next day, the eldest brother, he came. He's going to fill up the house. He had wagon loads of hay. Came in there with that hay, and in the living room, in the kitchen, the dining room, all the rooms, he piled hay high. Moved all the furniture aside, and all the dust of the hay is floating around. And then the father comes in and sees, "Yes, you've done it. You filled up the house. But let's just wait and see." He removed all the hay. Not quite what he was thinking of. 2 days later, the second son comes. He has his idea. He come with the horses. And he led in there right into the living room, right into the kitchen. He led these big horses. He put a horse in every room in the house. Called his father, and sure enough, the whole house was full of horses. Couldn't hardly ignore them. But he was not satisfied. And so they led all those horses away. Produce a third, now the youngest son. He has his choice. He has his chance. And he doesn't do anything for a couple days. And one day the father had gone asleep upstairs. The boy came quietly into the sitting room, and he lit a candle. And then he called on his father. And the father came down from upstairs. He looked around, What did he see? Oh, there he saw everything was neat, clean, and in its place, all the furniture as he knew it before. But it was all bathed in a kind of a golden, sweet light that filled the whole room and filled all the other rooms, bouncing off the ceilings and everything. And so the father was pleased. He felt, a sense of fulfillment. And so his youngest son, he got the inheritance. Well, this is our ideal, kind of, is to achieve self-fulfillment by discovering within us the light. What is the light? The light is divinity. That's what it is. And divinity, that's God. Divinity is consciousness. It's knowledge. It removes ignorance. And ultimately, it is our true nature. And so our goal is to go within, to discover the source of the light, and to identify with our own true self.
Nice to see you. And in case you're wondering why you're the chosen few today, it's because there's a huge celebration in Trabuco today for the 75th anniversary of the founding of the monastery there. And there was a huge celebration here yesterday, which probably tired a lot of people out, where we celebrated the 125th anniversary of Swami Vivekananda's arrival in Los Angeles. So two big anniversaries this year, which we'll probably be celebrating several times throughout the year. So we have, a few of you are probably old enough to remember Ed Sullivan. We have a really big show for you. He'd always start with that. So we have a really big show for you, and we're going to kick off the week on the 27th with Swami Prapandananda, the head of the Vedanta Society of Sacramento. He's going to speak on the meditation in daily life. And then on Wednesday, it's the gospel class with Swami Vedarupananda, and Thursday is Vivekananda's Raja Yoga, also with Swami Vedarupananda. Friday, we have our little reading of the tales and parables of Sri Ramakrishna. Saturday is Ramnam. I told you it's a big show. We've got something every day, except for Monday. You get tomorrow off for good behavior. Then on Sunday, Swami Sumanasananda will be speaking on Sri Ramakrishna, what they say about him. Then we have two big special events coming up this month. We had in March. We had two this month. We're going to have two next month. Shivaratri will be on Friday, the 8th, and it starts at 6 p.m. with 4 watches, which basically mean pujas. And so there are 4 pujas strung out through the evening, going from 6, and they end around 12:45, and then there's prasad served after that. And then on the 17th, we'll be celebrating Sri Ramakrishna's birthday with a puja here. His actual birthday is a few days before that, but we're celebrating it on Sunday so that you can all attend. All right, so Swami, thank you for your talk, and I bet you can corner him and give him some questions in the greenhouse living room, and you can close with a chant, maybe?
Is that open?
Yeah, I'll open it.
Yeah, okay, good. Om Dyo Shanti Antariksha Shanti Prithivi Shanti Apa Shanti Oshadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Saravam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Same Shantiredhi Om Shanti 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 Om. Peace is in heaven, peace is on the earth, peace is in the sky and in the waters. The herbs and plants and trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. May this eternal peace enter our souls and beings. Om. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Yes, join us in the green room for some question or commentary or pushback or disagreement.